All right. Good morning, Acting Chair Garrett, Member Vollendroff, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm going to call the February the 14th board meeting to order. I'm going to start with an amendment to the agenda. I want to amend the motion for the petition that's on the agenda to wait for the full board for discussion on that one.
I think that's great. I think we do need to have a full, all three board members here for that discussion.
Thank
So,
you.
I make a motion that do we need a motion or are you just gonna, no, I guess that's not, just to amend it now.
Yes. So from that, we're going to go into rulemaking timeline. Cassidy?
Hi, good morning, Member Vollendroff and Member Garrett. No, I'll give you an update since yesterday, unless you'll want me to get into details of the other rules. But for the minors on premises project, which Denise is going to be bringing a 101 to the board at the next board meeting on the 28th, we have received a lot of comments. And as a reminder, this was a petition that the board accepted in 2022, excuse me. And this is twofold. So we received a lot of comments about one petition that was received about children and grandchildren being on the premises. And then there was another petition received about contractors that are under the age of 21 to be on the premises to do work temporarily. So we did receive a lot of comments on the first one, definitely looking for comments on the second one. And Denise plans to bring the 101s for both of those projects and kind of do them in tandem. Any questions about that? Okay,
I have no
great.
questions.
All right, and then we have another project starting on March 13th. Jeff is going to be presenting a 101 for the petition that was accepted in January 2023 from Micah Sherman about having more flexible payment terms and allowing checks to be mailed within 3 days. And so we're working on a timeline for the 102 for now, but we would expect probably in June or July the 102 would be filed. It depends on stakeholder engagement, but we don't expect a ton on this one. Otherwise, most immediately, as a reminder, the social equity informal comment period ends on the 29th. So please send those any comments you have to rules@lcb@wa.gov. And that is it for today. All right, thank you.
Thank
you. I'll pass it to Daniel. He is presenting a 101 to the board today.
Okay. Daniel?
Thank you. Good morning, Acting Chair Garrett, Member Vollendroff. I'm here to request the board's approval for filing the CR 101 on the prohibited conduct rulemaking. The CR 101 is the pre-proposal statement of inquiry, which is the first step in the rulemaking process required by Washington state law on rulemaking. If approved today, the CR 101 would be filed immediately and a public comment period will be open until March 22nd. Comments can be submitted via writing or email to rules@lcb.wa.gov. Draft rule language will be circulated publicly and posted on our website before at least 2 public stakeholder feedback sessions, during which the public can comment on the proposed draft language.
I have a question. I'm sorry, Daniel, to interrupt. Can I ask a question? I thought we decided early that we're going to postpone this discussion until next time we have a board meeting in which all 3 board members could be present.
Yeah, because I don't see that on the agenda.
I don't know, Daniel, if you were on at that time, but we've amended the agenda because we don't have a full board and we feel like this particular item warrants having a full board. So I think we would defer that to the board meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay. Sorry, just want to clarify really quick. Are we doing the 101 in 2 weeks as well?
Because my understanding was that from the amendment of the agenda was to postpone addressing the petition. The petition for rulemaking. I didn't hear anything about addressing postponing the CR 101 as well, because the petition was added to the agenda. So I could defer to the board.
So I thought right now we were doing alcohol-related rulemaking. That's what the agenda is saying. So we're going right into the action items? Are you,
Oh, there are no updates really for alcohol rulemaking. Since yesterday, Daniel provided all of those. So we were
Okay.
just gonna go straight into the 101. My apologies.
okay, that's
Okay.
what
Alright.
that's what threw us, I think, is
Yeah.
we bypassed the alcohol rulemaking. So now we are into action item. And
Great.
Daniel is going to be presenting a rule petition for us for the CR 101. Okay, now we're back on track.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Sorry, so do you want me to address the petition for rulemaking or the CR 101 or both? I'm confused as to which is being postponed to February 28th.
We're amending the agenda for the discussion on the petition. So the the motion on the petition is what we amended.
Okay,
But
so
yes, we would do the motion on the CR 101.
okay. Should I start over?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm here to request board's approval for filing the CR 101. If approved today, will be filed immediately. Public comment period will be open until March 22nd. The rule language will be circulated publicly and posted on our website before at least 2 public stakeholder feedback sessions. The soonest that we can file the proposed rules is April 10th, which would then trigger another mandatory period to allow for public comment on these proposed rules. The earliest we would then be able to have a public hearing on those proposed rules is during the May 22nd board meeting. The soonest we would then be able to file the final rules would be the June 5th board meeting, which would then have the new rule language, whether it's amended language or repeal, effective July 6th. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I am requesting approval of the CR 101 on the prohibited conduct rulemaking addressing WAC 314-11-050.
Thank you. Oh, go
I
ahead,
was
board
gonna-
member.
No, Jim, I was gonna ask for you to do the motion.
Thank you, Daniel. I just have one question. I know that there was Senate action calling for the repeal of that particular rule. And can you just describe how that Senate action and our action today, what are the implications of both of those things happening simultaneously?
That's unclear at this time. There's actually a hearing on that. The public hearing for that bill happened, it just ended a few minutes ago. It was at 8 a.m. The current language of engrossed substitute Senate Bill 6105 instructs us to repeal this rule. If that language passes, I think that it would streamline our process, because right now our process is designed to address whether or not we want to repeal the language or amend it. And so, as I mentioned during yesterday's caucus, I think that we would still need to consult with other advisors and legal to sort of address what that situation would put us in if we're instructed by the legislature to repeal this regulation. So it's unclear at this time.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, and the reason before we do the motion and the reason we were amending for full board on the discussion of the petition is I was ill yesterday, didn't hear any of the board caucus, and David has COVID and he's not here today. So we want to wait for a full board discussion on that. With that, I will go back now to entertain a motion on the CR 101.
This is Jim.
yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the petition for the CR 101 regarding product WAC 314-11-050.
Thank you. And with that, it's approved. I approve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Sorry for the confusion.
Thank you for
Not a
bearing with
problem.
us.
Not a problem. There is one more alcohol-related rulemaking matter, which is the public hearing on trade area.
Okay, so we're gonna open the public hearing on that.
Sure. So I can just give a brief introduction before we do that. So just some brief background. This is on trade area WAC 314.02.1071 defines the term trade area as it's used in RCW 6624-630 on spirit retailers. The law requires spirit retailers to be at least 10,000 square feet, subject to a few exceptions. Excuse me. One of these exceptions is if there are no other spirit retailers in the trade area of the proposed new store, meaning you can open a spirits retailer that's smaller than 10,000 square feet if, among other requirements, there aren't any other stores in the trade area. But the term trade area isn't defined in statute, so we get to define it in rule. A trade area is currently defined as 20 miles, unless we are talking about locations on some of the islands or former state liquor stores. When this rule was initially created after liquor privatization in 2013, there was a proposal to include stores on tribal land and owned by tribes in the list of exceptions to the 20-mile requirement. This would have allowed stores on tribal land or owned by tribes to open regardless of the square footage. That proposal did not make its way into the final rule language, and some tribes were unable to open spirits retailers as a result. This rule project has been meant to take another look at this decision to leave out the language about tribal businesses. We filed this CR 101 in May, circulated draft rule language initially in July, and then again in October, after which we had two tribal engagement sessions and a stakeholder feedback session in November. We received industry feedback and suggestions that ultimately were not incorporated as part of the draft rules. These draft rules were filed on January 3rd with the 102, and we have not received any public comment on the draft rules. This proposed rule language does three main things. One, it removes an outdated reference to how the LCB measures 20 miles. It cleans up language about the retailers that are located on some of the islands, and it adds in language exempting retailers in Indian country owned by tribes or tribal enterprises from the 20-mile distance requirement, providing relevant definitions for Indian country and tribal enterprises with references to federal law. Following the November stakeholder engagement session, we received feedback in the form of proposed amendments from some industry stakeholders seeking to expand the pool of those retailers being exempted from the 20-mile distance requirement, as well as a requirement that LCB provide notice to those stores who would have been within the trade area of these newly allowed tribal retailers. We've declined to include these suggestions because of the intentionally narrow scope of this rule project and the fact that expanding the pool of retailers exempt from the 20-mile distance requirement would run counter to our intentionally narrow scope. Additionally, the requirement for us to provide notice about tribal businesses would entail us essentially providing notice to private entities about the actions of a sovereign nation, which is a concept that we feel like is not appropriate and also runs counter to sort of the spirit of this rulemaking. With that, I believe we're ready to proceed with the public hearing. I will just note that while we typically don't answer questions that happen during the public hearing itself, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have after the public hearing concludes. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we have two people signed up for public hearing. The first one is Brad Tower.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning, Brad.
Members of the board. Thank you for the record. My name is Brad Tower. I'm here today on behalf of the Washington Liquor Store Association, speaking to the rulemaking proposal here, the CR 102. We have some pretty serious concerns about the language that's proposed. While I would say that if the intent were to narrowly construe this particular measure, the effect of the measure is quite broad. And I've got four different points that I'd like to bring up about this. The first is that the sale at auction of the state liquor stores was essentially the sale of trade areas. And the LCB conducted that auction on behalf of the state and received a significant amount of money from private citizens in Washington state for the right to operate within those trade areas with footprints of less than 10,000 square feet. So this proposed rule amendment to change the trade area to allow for a new geographic location to come into one of those trade areas fundamentally undermines that value proposition that was part of the property tax, or excuse me, the property certificate was sold to those citizens. And I believe that Mr. Cho will speak more to that in just a bit. The second point I'd like to make is that, Washington State still has by far the highest spirits tax in the nation. And so to any extent to which a retailer might be exempt from certain taxation in liquor sales, that creates a tremendous competitive advantage and could potentially pull away a significant amount of business from the full tax-paying entities. So we have some concern about that. I don't have specifics about the application of that in terms of tribal businesses. What's more concerning to me, though, is that when the Citizens Initiative was initially proposed to get the state out of the business of selling spirits in favor of private enterprises, it failed. And it failed because it didn't have a restriction on the 10,000 square foot minimum. The citizenry was very clear that they did not wish to see spirit sales in gas stations, every convenience store, and potentially in drive-through smoke shops or coffee shops. This particular rulemaking doesn't preclude a specific tribe or tribal enterprise from having multiple geographic locations of any size footprint. It would eliminate the LCB's ability to object to the proposal of any location of any size that is included in tribal trust lands. So I believe that there could be something as small as a drive-through, smoke shack down in the Nisqually Valley that could potentially receive this license to sell spirits along with the items that are being sold in the drive-through. And then the final thing that I would bring to the board's attention is that the way this is drafted is one-sided. And I would say, so if a tribal enterprise proposed to open in a geographic location that was inside the defined trade area of a non-tribal entity, they would be exempt and therefore eligible to receive that license. But if the tribal entity already has an existing geographic location and a non-tribal entity proposed to open up nearby, I believe they would be prohibited by the 20-mile trade area definition from opening that non-tribal enterprise. So we haven't created a separate island of potential activity on the tribal reservations. What we have done is simply exempted them from the protections that have been afforded to those people that purchased those property rights.
Brad, you have 30 seconds.
With that, I will wrap up my comments and be open for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have David Cho signed up.
Hi, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is David Cho. I am the president of the Washington Liquor Store Association. We represent the owners of the former state and contract stores who operate stores less than 10,000 square feet. If you remember, about 12 years ago, the state sold off the rights. At that time, we numbered about 330. We're down to about 20% of that. And through a number of business reasons, people left the business. They didn't survive. But nonetheless, I represent the entrepreneurs that made it through. So here we are. I'm here to speak about the importance of trade area and how that influenced my decision and our members' decisions to operate stores and to buy these title certificates that the state sold. As a group, we purchased these certificates from the LCB during the liquor privatization. This process entailed learning and understanding and calculating all the rules that the LCB told us we would have to operate these liquor stores. And the biggest determinant was the notion of trade area. And that was important because it protected our right to operate liquor with less than 10,000 square feet. We knew a Safeway could open up. We knew a Costco could open up, but we were protected. And that had a value. And as a result, the state received about $33 million from entrepreneurs like myself who determined that I know the rules. The state gave me this contract, and I am protected and I can operate and make this kind of money. And that's how the state sold off these rights. And that was the actual process. And it is, in our opinion, unethical for the LCB to now say, we will rewrite this contract. We will redefine what trade area is after the LCB collected all these millions from us entrepreneurs. And on a personal note, I have 4 title certificates. I own a location in Tumwater. I bought that right. That is not open because Costco right next door can sell items sometimes cheaper than I could buy them. But I understand because I knew that they're a big company and they can get volume discounts. So I understand. I also have the rights in Kirkland. Kirkland, I had a business, but that whole area was redeveloped in Totem Lake. They did not want me to open up a liquor store there because they sold it to Whole Foods and other big companies. And I could not move within the 1 mile radius of my certificate. But I knew that rule going into it. That was a calculated risk. So that store is not open. So I have a store in Woodinville, which is doing very well. We sell a lot of craft spirits, a lot of local spirits. I have a store in Tacoma that does very well. We serve the community very well. We're very responsible. But the point is, I know the rules. I calculated my risks. I understand what the LCB did. And us as members feel that it is unethical because now they're saying, let's change the rules. All this money we receive from you is now going to be, the value will be going down tremendously. So that is what I'm here to say. I'm happy to take any questions you like.
Jim, any question?
No, I
No.
don't think we usually
No.
go into questions.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to close the hearing on the public hearing on trade areas. And move on now into general public comment. This is the public comment period of the meeting. Everyone will have up to 4 minutes to speak. Please limit your comments to LCB business and refrain from personal attacks or going off topic into things unrelated to what we do here. I will mention if I think a speaker has wandered too far. Please be respectful to the speakers and everyone else who is present, whether virtual or in person. Do not disrupt the meeting or other people making comments. If we have any disruption, I will have to pause public comment until the disruption stop. Please remember that this is being recorded and will be available online later today. If you're in the room with us today, please be aware that the microphones are sensitive and will pick up papers, rustling, and things like that. If you're joining us online, please give us a second to connect you, and we will do so. Dustin will give you an alert when you get to 30 seconds, and I will ask that you conclude your comments once you reach the 4-minute mark. We will begin our general public comment with those who have registered who speak virtual. So first up, I have Jim Rios, and I hope I pronounced that right. Jim, are you available?
Give me just a moment, Acting Chair.
Okay, I see his hand raised.
That's why I couldn't find him. Jim, you should be able to controls now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure if my camera is working or not, but I'll just go ahead and get into it. Good morning. It's a pleasure to speak to the board once more to address ongoing concerns that were highlighted during the LCB JET interactions in late January. I and many others are relieved at the decision to redact the photographs taken of patrons at queer establishments. This act has eased the minds of many individuals and helps to ensure their safety long after. While we in the community do agree that photographic evidence is important for case building, I would like to suggest that the LCB board issue a policy that agents of the LCB take caution of collateral capture of individuals when they are not germane to an infraction or act of criminality. And if collateral capture is unavoidable, that as a default policy, patrons and photos will be redacted, helping to mitigate a cascade effect with regards to people's safety concerns at a future point. I noted that last week's meeting, the board is seeking to address bias concerns within the agency and policies long established. I urge you to look at policies with the lens of today and not of when they were written. Bear in mind that many policies of years past were written with intentional bias rooted in patriarchal and Puritan motivations no longer acceptable today. I would like to reiterate the enforcement is necessary and welcomed, but I would like to recommend that engagements should consist of a two-pronged approach, the initial contact team and a standby team. The initial team would ideally consist of no more than 3 people, and if serious infractions or acts of criminality are observed, then the standby team would be called in. The point is, don't lead with a team that looks like a raid force when it is not necessary. In terms of equitable enforcement, there is a need for tracking visits of licensees. When I spoke with Mr. Vollendorf last week, he mentioned a tool in development called a dashboard. He can speak more intelligently about it, but I would like to suggest incorporation of a central reporting database that all community enforcement agencies will report to and pull data from, so that community level agencies, the LCB and civil liberty organizations would have a central data source to query. I would also like to suggest that the LCB board ask their licensees to submit their demographic information, emphasizing the purpose is to ensure equitable enforcement and to conduct trend analysis to head off unbalanced enforcement, as well as streamlining enforcement itself while eliminating duplicative effort, which could lead to perceived bias-based enforcement. Bringing focus back to the queer community, it's important to understand our community is quite diverse. It transcends politics and racial groups alike because our center of gravity is sex, regardless if it's heteronormative or not, promiscuous or not, or if we're transgender or not. The point is, we are not part of a particular yet powerful heterosexual community that also practices what is deemed by them to be biblically acceptable. This key distinction has been the central target by them, tirelessly persecuting our queer and other sexually liberated communities, because for them, sex has always been dirty, perverse, and should be regarded as immoral if it is not biblical. This is why same-sex relationships and sexual health education are continually facing legal challenges, othering our communities. This attitude has prevailed long before our nation was founded and codified in laws and policies around the world. As long as people in power and influence continue to reject the concept that sexuality is as human as breathing, segments of humanity will be othered, hindered, and persecuted for being different. We need to understand that being different is perfectly human. It just requires empathy, patience, and I urge you to consider this during your rulemaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sammy Saab.
Hey, hello, how are you, Ali? And hi, everyone. And I just wanted to say hi for the board. I just want to deliver a message from my community in Kent and Renton and Tequila and Seattle. It is really very important for us, this one to be heard. To be different, it don't make us better. We are, we black and a lot, we are Sudanese American and East African American. We always facing we are not being treated equal. We want you guys to hear us. Our community as Muslim and even Christian, we don't like alcohol. We don't support alcohol much, but this is the people drink. We you know, is the freedom of whatever people choose. But we will love from you to do not see 211 and hurricane in Seattle and Tequila because it's affecting our people. And we have a lot of people that used to use us back in the day. They used to come and get medical cannabis from us. They refused to do so and they became alcoholic. So they feel the LCB, they affected them in the past legislature, not you guys. This is a new board. We look forward you guys to work out with us because even in the city of Renton, for example, I'm one of those pioneers. I see the social equity going forward is better than it was, but it still is not, acknowledged. It still is pioneer is being left. The pioneer exactly, and Arabic is not working. Maybe work for me because I fit everything, every criteria. That's why I'm a winner. But I want to tell you guys, some people is being left. And they are not from Sudan. They are African American and other. If we acknowledge them, they are less than 40. We can close that page. Like Kevin Shelton, Libby, those people, they been exist. Being pioneers, we have shops before 2017 and 2012. We've been having shops and cannabis medical shops. Now I am a winner because they fit every criteria you guys looking for, but others not. But at the same time, we didn't get 4 and 3 like others. But unfortunately, in a city of Renton, we cannot allow it. And unfortunately, the city councilor, Eddie, he's African American. He's not acknowledging, is this a new social equity? And he's not giving us the equal opportunity. This is like we are in limbo, and we need equity. We live in the city. We have people become alcoholic because they don't want to buy and get cannabis or donate to those, other people, not discriminating them, but we need to be acknowledged. We're different. We are Muslim. We are African. We are not African American. I'm the only one. They have other one like Ice Three King. He bought it from a Caucasian man. He's in Renton. Not in Renton. He's in Skyway. He bought the shop. He bought it by himself. He is from Ethiopia. And he don't want it to have the news because there is no equity. He said until those black people being acknowledged. I am the first cannabis medical in Washington state ever. Even I have a copy of a background from the state. I'm just telling you guys, this is a new legislation. We support you, Ali. We support you, all of you guys. We know we have a misunderstanding in the past. The problem is not you guys. The problem, those black leaders that are not representing the right issue. The right issue is the black pioneer. They need to be exist. And that boundary, 20 miles, 1 mile, 1,000 miles, that's too much for us, not allowing us to have the equal opportunity as people with color. Those people, like in the city of Renton, is only 2 white Green Market, and the other one is 420. Even Evergreen Market, he bought from
Sammy, you have 30 seconds.
from black people. So there is no black person. I need to be exist. We need to be acknowledged. That's all. No disrespect. But we want to thank all the people working for you guys, Sarah and all of them. And I really salute you guys. But sometimes misunderstanding happen. But like I said, the problem is not the board. The people reflecting to the board. So we need the board to acknowledge those pioneers. That's all. But thank you for working for the social equity. Look forward the social equity to happen. I wish the work on cameras to work
Sammy,
harder,
that's your
faster.
time.
They don't even know. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that. I just want to deliver the message for the community. Thank you so much. Allow me to speak. Thank you, Jim, and thank you all of you guys. And
All right. Next up, we have Gabrielle Newman. Gabrielle, are you there? I saw your hand
Sorry, yeah,
raised.
I was connecting him and he raised his hand and moved himself out of the queue. It'll be 1 more second. Gabriel, you should be good to go now.
Thank you. I am Gabriel Newman, Policy Counsel and Government Relations Manager at GSBA, Washington's LGBTQ+ Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, LCB, for your diligent response to concerns brought by community and for your willingness to engage and learn throughout this process. I had the pleasure with meeting with you on Monday, where I highlighted particular areas of concern that we have heard from our members. I'm repeating these points today so that they are reflected on the record among community. First, we want to make sure that regulations and compliance are checked. However, care should be taken to ensure schedules of LCB compliance visits do not disproportionately target LGBTQ+ establishments. Second, compliance visits should be conducted in a way that prevents potential disruption to patrons, including patrons' privacy. Number 3, Liquor Control Board should liaise with the LGBTQ+ community to understand the bar culture as it pertains to events, clothing, performance types, etc. Number 4, need for LCB to work directly with bar managers and owners to address compliance issues. Number 5, LCB should establish a way for bar owners to view and engage on anonymous complaints. And number 6, I repeat the call for the full repeal of the lewd conduct WAC. Thank you so much again, LCB. I really appreciate your willingness to come to the table and engage in a fruitful process going forward. And please consider GSBA as a resource going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move to in-person general comments. First signed up, we have Sky Tiira. Hope I pronounced your name correct. Sky.
Thank you. Hi, members of the board, staff, and public. My name is Sky Terrio, and I am here today to thank the board for their decisive action by acknowledging and respecting the courageous voices who've shared their stories since the raids on the LGBTQ+ licensees. My story started in rural Louisiana, and when I relocated to Washington State in 2010, I was excited to escape the rampant homophobia that I experienced growing up in a part of our country that is still controlled by religious bigots. Having spaces where my community can escape the routine exclusion, which is still highly present even in our state, has been paramount to healing the mental health impacts of growing up where I did. This board's action helped to recognize the importance of these safe spaces for those of us who are able to live our life out in all places and for those of us who are not. While being shirtless or in a jockstrap in a bar may seem trivial to some, having this freedom of self-expression creates a world where I and many others are able to meaningfully see that it is okay to be in the bodies we are in. Being surrounded by others who get to share that same freedom creates an environment where people in our communities get to see bodies being celebrated that may not match the toxic mainstream one size and its small messaging. Personally, having been able to see other bodies that look like mine dancing freely on the dance floor has impacted my own physical and mental health journey as I navigated life, working diligently to drop my weight from 275 pounds. I learned it was okay to look the way I looked, and there were places I could be free from judgment or ridicule. Places where body diversity is celebrated instead of shamed. In my own battles with body dysmorphia, this has been a life-changing relief that has allowed me to escape the world of self-hate. Repealing the prohibited conduct rule will provide meaningful impacts across many areas of health and safety, including the removal of the state-sponsored revenge porn created through previous enforcement, allowance of licensees to establish their own dress codes, and further ensuring safety for those in our community who are seeking a place of inclusion to be themselves while they cannot be out in the rest of their lives. Further, I stand in solidarity with the strippers, our workers, in supporting Senate Bill 6105 as it progresses through the House. During the time our state's legislator is working to define the bounds of the adult entertainment bill, I would like to ensure clarity that while correlated, the issue of repealing the prohibited conduct rule is an issue that deserves merit on its own, as well as in conjunction with what those workers have been accomplishing over the last 6 years. As the board has acknowledged, local jurisdictions around our state created their own rules and guidelines regarding nudity to match the constituents' requests. Given the diversity in our state, it is paramount that we allow those jurisdictions to continue governing in ways that align with the values of those who are being governed. The city of Seattle has determined that for our city, nudity is acceptable. As Member Vollendroff mentioned in a previous meeting, I can walk to the bar in a jockstrap, yet with the prohibited conduct rules in place, I was not able to go inside without causing a potential violation for the establishment I was entering. Given that our bars already make up a tiny portion of the overall licensees in our state, burdens like citation or the risk of losing their license are undue and can pose serious impacts to the financial well-being of both the establishment and its employees. I'm excited to participate as the rule change process continues forward, and am eager to hear from our community as we work together to navigate the path ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Peter Manning.
Well, good morning, Acting Board Chair Garrett and Vollendroff, and I hope David Postman gets better. Godspeed. I'd like to address what's been on my mind. First off, I'd like to say congratulations to the LGBTQ community for their accomplishments dealing with this agency. I'd also like to put out there that the LGBTQ community, I don't want to get it wrong, understand that Black and brown people have been dealing with this agency and their enforcement unjustly since its inception, when it was a liquor and cannabis liquor board, and then it became the liquor and cannabis board. It has never treated the Black and brown community as equals. We have fought every step of the way to gain equity in the market that should be open to all of us if we're Washingtonians. I don't even know, 10 years in the making, I've been fighting this fight. We still don't have one Black-owned store in Seattle open. During my investigation from Black Excellence Cannabis, I am president of Black Excellence Cannabis. Me and my team discovered major corruption inside this agency. We have pointed it out. We've asked this agency to look into it. Crickets, nothing. The LGBT community, please understand that we are allies with you. Look at our pain and suffering. Come see us and see what we're going through as a community too. We are oppressed by the same people. We need people. This agency has always picked on people that don't fit the narrative of white conservatism. Black people, brown people, the gay community have always been at odds with this agency. And I'd like to know why. We need to have this agency audited. I believe, I'll say that repeatedly again and again. I do not think for one moment that Valendroff and David Postman are racist or bigots. What I think they inherited was a festering, and I'm not speaking of all employees here. There's some good employees here, but there's a core element here that has a tendency to pick on the disadvantaged people of this state. And we need to understand why. I don't even understand how you could walk into a gay establishment and try to shame someone for expressing who they are. That made no sense to me. What government interest was that? But please understand, this is something we've been dealing with in the Black and brown community for years. Over enforcement, National Guard, DEA, teaming up with the LCB to do a raid on a grow in the backyard of a Black house that somebody Black or brown owns in the Black neighborhood. This agency most definitely needs to have someone look at it. It needs to be audited. We got to come together, people. The LGBTQ
Peter, you have 30
community,
seconds.
the Black community, the brown community, we are at odds here. We got to unify. Let's get in here. These people do not have the control. They only have the control that we allow them to have. Thank you.
Next up, we have Chad Swaney.
Hello, board and members of the public and staff. Thank you so much. My name's Chad Swaney, and I'm a member of the Queer Life Night community here to speak out in support of the repeal of WAC 314-11050. I want to start out by thanking Chair Postman, who unfortunately isn't here, and also Member Garrett, Member Bolendroff, Director Lucella, and Director Wax for their quick action on an issue that impacts my community deeply and profoundly. I've worked in state level advocacy for many years, and this is the quickest response to the community by a state agency that I've ever seen. And I also appreciate your willingness to listen to me and to members of my community and taking our concerns seriously. I want to talk a bit about why I think the repeal of 050 is so critical. For hundreds of years, queer people have been told that our bodies are sinful, they're shameful, or somehow broken. Policing the bodies of queer people has a long history of violence, from raids of queer spaces in Victorian England to violent raids in New York City in the 60s, policing how we dress, to current day, when states are enacting draconian laws denying medical care to trans people, and then right here in Washington, when queer people in what they thought were safe spaces found themselves subject to humiliating inspection and photography of their bodies by law enforcement wielding flashlights. The good news is that while we can't fix centuries of wrong and we can't change what is happening in other states, we can take at least one small step here in our state to remove this harmful language from the WAC. Queer bodies have been policed, shamed, and marginalized for too long, but you can do something about it. I urge you to repeal 314-11050 and allow Washington to be a safe place for the vibrant self-expression of our queer community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting today. There's no one else signed up for comment. And with that, the board meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.